Okay, so I'd just like to welcome everyone to today's event, which is the virtual presentation masterclass, How to Communicate Your Business and Your Brand in 2022. This event is being held as part of the Suffolk Business Festival. We're really glad to have you here today, and we're joined by today's event partner, which is Ashley of Ashley Riley Communications. So welcome, Ashley. It's good to have you along. Just a bit of background on the Business Festival. The annual East Suffolk Business Festival is an opportunity for businesses to learn something new, to find out what's happening in their local area and how they can get involved, as well as find out how they can access local support programs like this event. For 2022, the theme of this year's Business Festival is all things digital, and the events will include the launch of new digital business support programs, digital tech demos, information on local digital projects, as well as a number of workshops, webinars, and learning sessions. All events are being held online to enable local businesses to access support and information they need more conveniently, and so they can just pop in during their working day. Recorded events, podcasts, and pre-recorded webinars will be made available throughout the 2-week period and beyond, and these can be found at www.esuffolkmeansbusiness.co.uk. This is one of the many events scheduled, so to find out about the other events taking place, please visit our East Suffolk Means Business website for more information. Please note that today's event is being recorded, so you'll be able to watch it back later. You can watch the recordings via the East Suffolk Means Business website at the link I just said. If you'd like to ask any questions throughout today's event, please either submit them via the Q&A button or add a question to the chat. These options can be found at the bottom of your screen. If you would like to add a question to the chat, please can you just ensure this is sent to all attendees so it does not get missed. At the end of the event, there'll also be a short poll to get your feedback. This will help us shape future events and activities within the Business Festival. So if you could complete the poll at the end, that would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, I'm now pleased to hand over to Ashley for the presentation. Over to you, Ashley.
Adam, thank you so much, and good afternoon, everybody. Really good to see you. Thank you to East Suffolk for hosting us. Thank you to you guys for putting on what's been a great festival so far, I'm sure. And thanks, Adam, for that introduction. I can only imagine how many times you've had to say that this week, or how many times you're going to have to say it next week as well. So good for you. Guys, I've got a presentation. I'm just going to share my screen there with everybody. So hopefully you can see that. Can you give me a thumbs up? Can you see my screen okay there with the first screen on there? Fabulous. So you can see that. That's lovely. Let's pop you guys down at the bottom. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining this morning. We've got half an hour together, and what I'm keen to take you through over the next 20-25 minutes or so is some real research, evidence-based stuff on how you can make your presentations really powerful. Because I think 2 years ago, most of us, if somebody said the word Zoom, we'd kind of think about the noise a rocket makes, let alone a piece of software that we can use. And then over the first year of COVID, the whole Zoom and virtual presentations became this is something we're doing in the short term. Whereas now, as we go into 2022, it's not become something we do in the short term. I think it's become something that we're all going to use into the future. And the number of clients my business has, and I'll tell you a little bit about my business shortly, are finding from their research and engagement with their customers that some of them are actually choosing virtual presentations as the way forward. They actually like it, that they prefer it. And so it's not a let's do this in case people don't want to meet. It's this is the choice we have. And therefore, I think that the pressure's on all of us as businesses, whether you're watching today as a sole trader, whether you're new to business, whether you've been doing this stuff for years, it's more important than ever that you do a really powerful, effective virtual presentation, because that's what people are going to remember you by. So that's what I'm going to take us through today. A little bit about me, so hopefully you get some trust that I know what I'm talking about. So I've been running my own marketing and communications agency for nearly 10 years now. Wow. And before that, I was the director of comms at London Stansted Airport, which at the time was Britain's third biggest airport. I ran campaigns for a global charity. I was an advisor to a member of parliament, which I don't tend to talk about much at the moment because we've got such high values of what politicians are up to at the moment. And I used to be a children's nurse years ago. And I share that with you, not because, wow, look at me, but it's because you'll probably see they're all jobs where I've had to learn about communication. They're all jobs where I've had to learn how to present and be effective. And what I'm sharing with you today comes very much from that experience. And to reassure you straight off the bat, I need you to get out of your heads that you're either good at this stuff or you're not. You know, when we talk about confidence in presenting, or whether we talk about whether you're good at presenting, all of that stuff is a learned trait. Nobody's born a good communicator. Nobody's born confident. This is stuff you can learn. And so don't sit there thinking, well, I'm just not very good at this stuff. This isn't for me. Everybody can improve. And when I watch back some of my presentations from a number of years ago, I cringe at how poor I was. And so what I'm keen for you to really understand from this is this is stuff that you can learn. And I want to keep it quite simple, because what I don't want to do is just give you too much information and make you feel somehow intimidated at what you can do. So we've got quite a simple agenda. The first thing we're going to talk to you about is the importance of the content of your presentation, and make points to you, such as, if you use PowerPoint, it's called PowerPoint for a reason. You're meant to make powerful points. The second half, we're going to talk about delivery, actually giving you some tips on how you deliver, how you perform. And I'd argue that that's as much as 50% important. It's not just what you're saying, it's how you say it. And then we'll have time for question and answers at the end. And if anybody's watching this on playback, my email address will be there for you to be able to contact me if you need it. I always believe when we're learning new skills, one of the first things to do is ask ourselves a serious question. You know, and the question when we're going to present at any point is, what's the objective? What's the reason we're doing this? And sometimes we don't know the answer to that, and that's okay. So it's about saying, well, okay, what am I trying to do from this? Because for most of us businesses, I'm doing a presentation to a customer or to a client to sell something, or I'm doing this to impress people. And so it's one of the bits of advice I'd give you right off the bat is the objective of a presentation very seldom is to sell. You can't do it on a presentation. What you're trying to do is engage people. You're trying to engage people so there's some follow-up. That's the key. And so that should help straight away to get your minds out of, you've got to give people absolutely everything in the presentation. You don't have to. What you're looking to do is get someone to follow up. You're looking for someone to say, I enjoyed that presentation. He or she was, you know, they engaged me. I'm going to drop them an email. I'm going to do some follow-up. That's what you're trying to do. So it helps to think, well, I haven't got to give everybody everything straight away. And so I suppose before we go into the content big time, I just want to do some golden rules that I always tell people to remember as they go into a presentation. So I mean this in the nicest way, but it ain't about you. It's about the customer. It's about what's of interest to them. Now, of course, you want to talk about yourself a little bit. I've already done that. But always having in your mind that it's about what the customer wants and how the customer is engaged. And so, as I've said there, it's not about sealing the deal there and then. It is about engaging and getting the follow-up. And so it's actually better to leave people wanting more than giving them all on the first date. Now I'm happily married for the last 26 years, but I'd imagine if I was dating now, God forbid that was happening, that what you don't want to do is have the first date and say to the person, should we go on holiday together? Or God forbid, oh, nice to meet you, let's get married. You don't do that, do you? In dating, I imagine it's one step at a time, and you want to show people that you're interested in and that you're a person they want to see again. And presentations are exactly the same. It's not about giving people absolutely everything. It's giving them a taster about what you want to offer them going forward. I think because it's intimidating often online and we can't see people's faces and we can't see people's reactions, it's tempting to want to give them every single bit of knowledge that we've got. And so showing them how fantastically knowledgeable you are won't win people over. It just intimidates them. So I do a lot of work with finance companies, and obviously they're men and women are doing finance presentations a great deal. They'll often go into the minutiae of how the markets work, or they'll show you graphs of how pensions work. That switches people off. People don't want to be intimidated. They want to feel like they can understand what you're talking about. So don't feel that you've got to kind of show off your deep knowledge. I think also one of the uncomfortable things for us all is a good presentation is not about being in your comfort zone. This stuff is weird, guys. It's not natural. It doesn't feel okay. It feels strange talking to a laptop. So I do this stuff as a living, and I still feel a little bit strange about being here in my office, talking to a camera on the top of my laptop and not seeing people's reactions. So if you think, well, I'll be good at this stuff when I feel comfortable about it, that day ain't going to come. You know, it's about recognizing that this stuff is a bit challenging, but by getting it right, your businesses can be so much more successful. I love this quote, and I'm going to take you through another golden rule here of presenting. So the psychology of audiences and their attention span is that the average human cannot hold and absorb more than 10 pieces of information at a time. I thought that was quite interesting. One, it surprised me. I thought that many, flipping out 10. I struggle with 5 half the time. But it just shows us how much information people need if we're hoping they're going to remember it. And so there's something called the 10-20-30 rule, which is used a great deal in presenting, which I wouldn't say you strictly have to adhere to, but it's something that you can and should consider going forward. And the 10-20-30 rule was created by a guy called Guy Kowalski, who used to work for Apple. And he states that the 10-20-30 rule is that a PowerPoint presentation should have no more than 10 slides, never lasting longer than 20 minutes, and should use a minimum point size of 30 for the font. Most of you are probably looking at that thinking, well, that's quite challenging. Because a lot of the presentations I see, I've seen a 40-slide presentation that goes on for about an hour, and they use, font size 18, and I'm asleep usually after 10 minutes. And so, although it's kind of the challenge, and my presentation today isn't 10 slides, I try to get it as close as I can. It's always a good touch point to come back to, because this stuff is evidence-based. And so, don't beat yourself up if you're not using the 10-20-30 rule. But make sure it's always that, as I say, that touch point that you can come back to and use. So content, let's concentrate first on the content, actually what you're putting into your PowerPoint or into your presentation. Always have a holding cover slide. So you would have seen mine at the start of this presentation. I used the logo of the Suffolk Business Festival, and I just had the title of what I'm presenting. Cover slides are really helpful because with Zoom or with Teams, there's always going to be latecomers. There's always going to be people that are coming in too late, and you need to give them the opportunity to come in and not feel like they've joined halfway through, even if you're on your second slide. So it's always good to have that holding cover slide so people actually know what they're coming to. And I know that sounds really obviously weird, but I have had people during a presentation say to me, oh, I thought I'd come to a different webinar than this one. And you kind of think, yeah, but you clicked to agree that you came and you saw that I invited you, and you still think you're in the wrong ones. So it gives that confidence that straight off the bat that people know they're in the right place and you know what you're going to talk about. Always have a biography slide. People buy people, not products. And so people want to know a little bit about you. The other advantage is that if you're sharing a few kind of biography details at the start, you're giving yourself some confidence. So much of presenting well is about being confident. And I don't mean being confident necessarily as a person in your own abilities. I mean confident that you can present okay. And to just have a slide about your background or your job or what you've done, I think not only informs people that you're normal, but it just gives you that bit of confidence. It just helps make people recognize, oh, okay, that's what they did. That they do know what they're talking about, and it helps you at that nervous part at the start of a presentation to actually remember that you are good at this and you do know your stuff. I think then it's usually useful to have one slide or a maximum of 2 on your business and what it does, so people know again what you do. So if you're in the gardening sector, just what you do, how long you've done it, what you sell, and what you can provide. You're building confidence in the person that's watching the presentation right at the start. And even just from those 3 bullet points there, I'm conscious that, this is almost your introduction. You've got a holding slide, you've got a biography slide, and you've got a slide on your business. So you're giving people time to come into the presentation, to settle down. You're building confidence in that they're in them, so they know you know what you're going to talk about. It's so often winning the confidence game early on in the presentation. By having those three things on there, you're gonna get off to a good start. People want an agenda, guys, but people want to know what you're going to tell them. There's a wonderful old marketing phrase that goes, tell people what you're going to tell them it, and then tell them what you've just told them. People remember things in threes. So an agenda is just really good to say to people, over the next half an hour, this is what I'm going to tell you, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to end with this. You don't always have to stick to that agenda. Nobody ever comes back to me and says, you didn't stick to your agenda, Ashley. But again, it builds confidence at the start that here's a structure, this is what we're going to talk about, and people like that. As you go through the content of your presentation, we've all, I'm sure, felt the need to use images and graphs and animations, and we're all going to be at different levels on this. So if you are a graphic designer, this is your time to show the world how great you are. If you're not, just be careful. And this is where I encourage you to be reflective, and we've all got that ability. What I'm kind of saying is, if you're rubbish at design, kind of steer clear of it, you know, and don't try and wow people with it, because it can look a little bit naff. If you want to show people a graph, just be conscious that could really intimidate them. So you need to explain what that graph means. Animations, again, just be careful. Sometimes the IT doesn't work, and it's going to, again, look pretty rubbish if it doesn't work. So just be really careful. I'm not trying to put you off doing that, but again, don't try and overwhelm people if you haven't got the ability to do that. This is where we perhaps go a little bit too much in detail, but again, I'm more than happy for you to have a copy of the slides and look this stuff through as guidance. On the main content of a presentation, what I'm advising is three main issues. Just the whole presentation needs to have three main issues. Why people remember things in threes. And I know you're probably screaming out at me now from the other side of your computer, but I've got 5 great things that I need to tell people. Hey, and of course you have, but if you present 5, I pretty much guarantee they won't remember 2 of them. Potentially they won't remember 3 of them. Try and get it down into 3, because then each of those issues 1, 2, and 3, again, you need to have a maximum of 3 points. So you're looking at 9 points you want to get across to people. I get this is quite prescriptive, and I get you're probably looking at it thinking, oh, he's being very detailed here about 9 points. If you got 10, it's not a problem. 6, you're not at fault. 11, that's okay, but this is your kind of checkpoint that you keep coming back to. Because then with each of your issues, 1, 2, and 3, I'm suggesting you should have 2 slides each. So you've got 3 points to make, and each of those 3 points can have 2 slides. So you're giving yourself time, and you're giving yourself the capacity to get in the information you want. Because remember, you're trying to make powerful points. You're not trying to put everything you know onto the slides at one point. And as you can see at the bottom there, that's what I'm suggesting is a maximum of 6 slides for main content. Get that right, and you are well on your way to kind of having quite a powerful presentation. If you can't get everything in on it, you can bring that up in the question and answers at the end. You can talk around the issues as you're presenting. One of the great things to say to people is, if you'd like a bit more information, you can email me afterwards, or you can pick up the phone and I'll leave my details at the end of this presentation. You know, that's part of the marketing pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. If people follow up, I'd much rather you leave people wanting a bit more than giving them absolutely everything on hundreds and hundreds of slides. So 3 main issues if you can, and they've all got 2 slides each. That's what you're aiming for. Don't beat yourself up if you haven't done that, but that's what you need to aim to get going forward. On the content side, you're then aiming towards a conclusion. Obviously, you don't want to call it a conclusion. The minute you say this is a conclusion, everybody starts thinking about going the loo or switching the kettle on or their next job. What you do in your conclusion is you remind them of the 3 key points on one slide. That's tell them what you've just told them. In marketing terms, again, the more you repeat your message, people will will remember it. And recognise that even though you're raising those points, it may raise more questions than answers, and that's absolutely fine. As humans, we've become more inquisitive because of Zoom. And the great test always is whenever you've got a Zoom or a Teams meeting, it's pretty guaranteed in the first 5 minutes you're thinking what that person looks like, what the state of the house is like, what the background's like, how you'd never have pictures like that in the background. I can't believe what they're wearing. We all do that, and it makes us question things. The guys who are running the festival are lucky guys. You've got blue behind you and you've got your logo, so it's okay for you guys. But it makes us inquisitive people. It makes us inquisitive, and so recognise there may be more questions than that. I want to spend the last, what we've got, about 6 minutes left, 7 minutes, about delivery, because I've raced through a lot there, and it's probably a little bit quick, but we need to get through it. And again, raises more questions, but I wanted to give you some guidelines. The delivery stuff for me is as important, and there's some golden rules I want to take you through. We remember things in threes, don't we? Here's the key to delivering a great presentation. It's about confidence, it's about calm, and it's about coherency. So confident, calm, and coherent. If you're all of those three, I'm quite impressed. But they're all three things that if you're not, you can work towards. What do I mean? So confident, and again, I'll race through this, and again, I'm conscious that you'd probably like to know more about it. You have a choices of the voices you listen to. And what I mean by that is if you spend the 5 minutes before you present telling yourself you're no good at this, you hate it, it's going to fail, and you just want to get it over with, you're going to deliver a poor presentation. That's how. What you need to do is big yourself up, even if you don't feel like it. You have a choices of the voices that you listen to. You've got to fake it before you make it. And I know that's quite a tough lesson, but in life in general, if you talk stuff down, it ain't going to go well. You need to speak louder than usual on a presentation. So I'm presenting here. This isn't my conversational voice. I'm talking louder on here than I usually do. And that's about when we speak louder, we project ourselves better, but it also slows our voice down. So the louder we speak, the slower we speak. And the adrenaline in us on a presentation usually makes us talk too quickly. So do raise your voice. It feels like you're shouting. I'm in my office, it feels like I'm shouting, but actually it's probably hopefully coming across in a more powerful way. Go with the flow with how your body reacts. What do I mean by that? It's completely normal that when you're presenting on Zoom, you feel weird. You will have adrenaline pumping. You will potentially feel a bit sweaty. You do feel a bit, I can't wait to get over this. Those are normal reactions. So many people that I train on this say, if I could just stop feeling so nervous, or if I could just feel this or feel that, your body is not used to speaking to a computer. This is a weird thing to do. So if you do get a bit sweaty, no one's going to see it. If you are a bit uncomfortable, that's what happens. Just run with it. That feels absolutely normal. Calm. So manage your body and manage your mind. What I mean by that is before you present, make sure you drink lots of water. That will stop you drying up. It's making sure that when you're managing what you do, you deliver so much better. So a really silly tip that works incredibly well for me, and you can't see it here, is I'm presenting standing up. I hate sitting down and presenting. It's like if I've got a phone call to make that I don't want to make, I stand up because it makes me feel more confident. And so I'm controlling my body. I'm standing up tall. I can present better rather than if I'm hunched over my computer. Take a big deep breath before every slide. There's nothing worse than a presentation where people and all their way through it. The next point I'd like to make is this. Some of us do it. It's because we're scared of a silence. We're scared of going silent, and that's completely okay. And the best way to get rid of the and the ers is before every single slide, take a breath and then present. In our heads, that feels like about 30 seconds that it's gone quiet for. To the listener, it's a minutiae of a few seconds. So make sure you breathe. The other reason is if you don't breathe for 20 minutes, you will pass out or potentially die, and that's no good for anybody's presentations. If you can, down tools on other work at least 20 minutes before a presentation. Again, we're all busy, I get that, but if you're firing out emails and dealing with stressful stuff, and then 2 minutes after that you do a presentation, you're going to be all over the place. So ideally 20 minutes, in reality 10 minutes. 10 minutes before you're due to present, get a cup of water, go to the loo, get your computer working, get everything right so you're just in that calmness of mind. It puts you in a much more powerful position. Coherent, guys, you know your stuff, you do. And the likelihood is people on the other end don't. You will occasionally get a know-it-all, and you will get someone that's really irritating, but you do know your stuff, and you've got to tell yourself that what you're talking about is the stuff you know best, and that gives you much confidence. Your aim is not to sell. You're there to get follow-up. I know I've said that 3 times. 3 is the magic marketing number. You're not there to sell, you're there to get follow-up. I've also put, do not use finance sector wording. So I do stuff with the finance sector, but don't use terms that are used just a great deal in your sector, because people won't get that and it puts them off. So in the finance sector, when pension people, they often talk about, we've got X amount of funds under management. I have no idea what that means whatsoever. And we all work in different sectors where we've got our own different terminology. Try and steer clear of that. Guys, I'm conscious of the time, so I'm nearly there. This is this is a practical example of how you can do this stuff, because I like to think you're looking at me here, and this looks quite professional. So this is my office. You can see my bookcases above me here, and I've got things behind me. Nobody ever sees what's that way in front of the computer, but that's the stuff that can make your presentation work really well. And this is the stuff you can't see. So genuinely, that's what I've got around me as I'm speaking. And it looks a mess, but it works for me when I'm presenting, and it gives me confidence. And so I just wanted to give you some examples that might be obvious. Always have a clock. Always have a clock. You've got to be conscious of the time. Just to prove a point, there we go. I've actually got the clock in the photo. There it is. I've just pinched it from the living room. Because time runs away, and it's much better, he says, hypocritically, because it's nearly 1 o'clock, to finish before your time than run miles over. But it's really hard to present and be aware of the time. So you need a clock to keep referring to. We're all worried about forgetting something. You're never going to remember absolutely everything. You're always going to get panic moments. So cheat sheets are just the best. If there's 1 or 2 points you desperately want to get across and you think you might forget them, type them up and blue tack them on the wall in front of the computer. No one can see them. So we all have those moments when we dry up. Oh, we have those. Oh, I completely forgot my name. You've got the sheets there that you can fall back on every single time. It's probably one of the best bits of advice I can give you. Nobody can see you reading it if you're having a bit of a panic. Always have a drink. The amount of people that go, I just need to nip off and get some water. Have a drink. You will dry. It's probably the same glass. You probably will dry up, because talking like this for 20 minutes again is not a natural thing to do. Make sure you've got that there. Whatever you need to make yourself look how you want to look, use it. Okay, we are all human beings with different levels of vanity, and it all works differently for us. So, hey, I'm a 50-year-old guy, and I'm presenting to you on a stool with 5 books underneath me. One, because I like to stand up while I'm talking, but also, if I do this too much, I don't like the fact to get a double chin. Now, that might not matter a jot to anyone, and it might only be you, but actually it makes me feel more confident standing up and presenting with my shoes on in the house, which is a total no-go here. But whatever makes you feel more comfortable, it's about making sure you give the best presentation. You would if you were in the room, you'd dress well and you'd want to give across your presentation well. It should be exactly the same when you're at home. For those that really want to do the mecca of presenting, you can improve the light. So I've got that blanket above the door there because it stops my face looking completely washed out, but you can use an arc light. I haven't got one of those, but if you've got one, I borrowed that. But if you've got one at home, again, it just puts a bit more light on the whole situation. You might look at those and think, okay, some of them are over the top, but I did like the one about the drink. That's okay. Even if you just cherry pick some of this, the point of this presentation as we come to the end is not to say you have to do all of these. It's about saying these are some of the tips that experts use. And by using 1 or 2 of them, then you could really benefit. And my final tip, as we come to the end, is just about the journey of your presentation. reflect on the bumps in the road for you. What does that mean? That means most of us, when we finish a presentation, the first thing we do is go, oh, thank God that's over. And you just go and forget about it. And you just go and have a cup of tea or do your emails. That's normal behavior. If you can just spend 2 or 3 minutes honestly reflecting, how did that go? What worked well, what didn't? You'll keep improving for the next time. You'll keep making it better and better. So just that slight reflection on the bumps in the road can really work for you. So to summarize, it's not about you, it's about the customer. It's not about sealing the deal there and then. Leave people wanting a little bit more. You don't need to show them how fantastically knowledgeable you are. Guys, if you want to get in your comfort zone, this stuff isn't for you. It's about change is the only constant, and therefore presenting can be really powerful, but it means you might get uncomfortable sometimes. I rushed a bit there, guys. Sorry about that, Adam, but I wanted to get through and body once I'm a little bit late. I broke my own rule, but I hope that was helpful.
That was really interesting. Thanks, Dan. Actually, I want to stand up now and present. I really like that tip. I thought that was it's good what you said about how to sort of make you feel comfortable and that sort of thing. So, yeah, no, I am conscious of time. So, is there any questions?
On this chat, we have had a couple of comments come through to the host chat about how useful it's been. So thank you, Ashley. I had one quick question, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
A lot of people on virtual kind of presentations now use kind of those polls and quizzes. How would you kind of just ask people to manage that with actual delivery and in trying to engage people in that way?
I love the polls and the quizzes. I like it really well because we're moving to a point where in presentations, we want that two-way engagement. So if I'm going to a presentation in person and they're asking my view on things, I think that's really powerful. Doing that online, again, I think is a really good thing to do. So as a rule, if you can do it, my sort of warning advice would be make sure you can practice it and hone it and do it well, and make sure the software is working before you do it. Because there's nothing worse than saying, we want your votes, please engage, and then it doesn't work. And it's not your fault, but you leave people feeling a little bit like, oh God, okay, I was looking forward to that. But in general, the more you can engage people, the more powerful it is. People really like to have their voice. It's about the customer, not you. So actually, if you can do that, guys, I'd really advise to do it, but do it well.
Brilliant, thank you. We just had one question in the chat. It says, what if my technology knowledge and skills are limited? So should I brush up or use someone else?
Yeah, I think technology skills, so it depends kind of what you mean by technology. If it means on designing stuff, like putting slides together, there's a wonderful rule, KISS, K-I-S-S, and I don't mean it towards the person that's asked this question, but keep it simple, stupid. So people don't want all singing, all dancing. The only time you've got to be really good at the technology is if you're promoting a technology business. So I deliver these speeches. This is what I do. I also do marketing. I'm not a great designer. So my slides are quite simple. If you need a bit of help with someone putting your PowerPoint and your slides together, get that. But don't feel you have to be all singing, all dancing. Play to your strengths. 99 times out of 100, it's the emotions people get from a presentation rather than the content that will win them over. So there are some people in marketing that do much more pizzazzy and design and presentations than I do. I'd be as bold as to say they're not as successful as people like me are, because it's about the content, it's about the emotions behind it.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess it's one of the things that the more they practice, the more they'll get into the flow of things and be able to present more effectively, I guess.
Absolutely. And Adam, that's really helpful. And again, just to encourage people, this is not about you're going to be great after doing it one or two times. This is a journey. So where I was 10 years ago compared to where my presentations are now are radically different, but I'm going to need to change again, and I'm going to need to keep learning. And it's that kind of reflective tool that we talked about. If you can keep reflecting, guys, and just keep looking at what you need to work on and making those 1% changes and improvements every single time, then you will build that confidence and that ability to do this stuff better. And I'd encourage you to do that.
Yeah, that sounds good. Very sound advice. So from looking at the chat, I don't think we've got any more questions. So I think we're going to move over to a poll. So hopefully this works all seamlessly.
Yes, I've set us up now.
what we just said. But fingers crossed that's all okay.
Yeah,
While
so
you're doing that, just to encourage people, do email me at any point. The email address is there. I'm more than open to you to emailing me. Please do.
thank you. You should have a poll on your screen now. So if you can fill that out just for a minute, it should only take you 1 or 2 minutes, and then we'll close that once the attendees have completed it. I'll keep that running in the background if you like, Adam, and you can close up.
Yeah, sounds good. So as mentioned earlier, we do have a number of events happening for up till next Friday. So if you'd like to join them, please visit our East Suffolk Means Business website, whereby you can sign up and view them events. We also have social media channels as well. So on Twitter, we've got @ESMBiz, and also on Facebook, we've got East Suffolk Means Business as well. So if you could follow them, you'll be able to keep up to date with the latest content. If you have any questions from today, please feel free to contact us at economicdevelopment@eastsuffolk.gov.uk. I'm just going to conclude, but before I do, I just want to thank Ashley for his presentation today, and also yourselves for attending. Hopefully we'll see you at future events, and have a good day. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys. Thanks very much.
Cheers, Ashley. Thanks.
Cheers now. Bye.